For our line practice lesson today, I'm going to first do a magic trick with you. So if you want to watch in the little window down here at the bottom, do that first. So take a piece of paper, and whatever paper you have is fine. If it's drawing paper, is the best if you've got it. If you've got typing paper, that's fine. And if you just have plain notebook paper, that'll work too. So get whatever it is that you have and get ready to do your magic trick. So behold, we have a single piece of drawing paper. Nothing very special about our special piece of drawing paper. So what we're going to do is we're going to fold our paper in half. Now some people call this a hamburger fold because it's the wide way instead of, you don't want to do the skinny way. Do the wide way. Some people call it a hamburger fold. I call it delicious open bag of chips get in my belly fold. So we have now reduced the surface area of our rectangle by 50% or exactly half. Then we're going to fold it in half again like a hamburger fold. Some people call it. I call it delicious open bag of chips get in my belly. So now it is 1/4 of its original size. It is 75% smaller, 50% smaller than it was just a moment ago. Next thing that we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half one last time. Some people call this a hamburger fold. I call it delicious open bag of chips get in my belly. It is now 1/8 of its original size, or 12.5% of its original size, maybe. So what does that make it? 87.5% smaller than the original. Now it's time for the magic. I hope you're ready for this. You're going to take your paper and you are going to flick the paper and say your magic words. If you do not say your magic words, the magic will not happen. So you have to say the magic words. I don't know what your magic words are. You're your own magician, so just make up a word. Okay, are you ready? Flick it and say the magic words. Then, behold, in front of you, you have now transformed one rectangle of paper into 16 rectangles. And if you say, Miss Gamble, I only have 8, flip it over. Now, pat yourself on the back and say good job, because positive reinforcement is really important. So now what we're going to do is we're going to draw all these different types of lines in our box. So the first thing I want you to do is you're going to put your name over here, first and last name. And you're going to put either class 1 or class 2. And then you can circle it if you want to be a smart aleck and put exactly what I put. You don't have to put the date on there necessarily. All right, and we're going to label each of these. So vertical, horizontal, and I'll try to put these in a list somewhere so you know what they are. In fact, I'll actually see if I can get this copy so you can actually see it somewhere, I think. Okay, curved lines are curved. We'll talk about these in a second. Angular, zigzag, bent, and you can pause it right here, and that way you can write all these down. I'm going to flip it over and do the ones on the back. Straight lines, S-T-R-A-I-G-H-T lines, interrupted, thick, thin, parallel, cross-hatched, and spiral. And then we have one more rectangle left, and I like to call this the, oh man, I messed up rectangle. So that's just in case we need it, which you probably don't, but that's okay. So pause it again for a second if you want, because I know I wrote that really quickly, so you can pause it. And then when you're ready, we're going to flip this back over to the front. So now if you'll just put your pencil down and pay attention for a minute, I'm going to tell you when I'm done, and then it'll be time for you to go. And I'll show you what I'm expecting you to show me on Seesaw, or take a picture of it and send it to me that way. Okay, so vertical lines, again, no pencils right now, you just watch. Vertical lines go straight up and down, you know, just like, what's your vertical, man? How high up in the air can you jump? Horizontal lines go side to side, just like the horizon or the sky at the beach. Diagonal lines are at an angle, and I know what you're thinking, Ms. Gamble, this is the most exciting, incredible, creative project we've ever done. Of course it's not. This is not that exciting in and of itself, but again, we're practicing lines because everything you see is made up of lines. Now, if you have color, that is one easy way, unless it's a stamp, to add interest to your work. So I'm not going to change the type of lines that I'm making, but I am going to add some color. I'm also going to change the thickness of my lines. and the space between them. I'm going to change the thinness of my lines. I'm going to make some of them really close together and leave some of them really far apart. And so those are ways to add variety to your work. You can also make some of them shorter. So I still have vertical lines, but some of them are shorter. So that's going to be more interesting. Again, it's still not your turn, so don't start coloring yet. Don't get ahead of me. So now curved lines are curvy, you know, and we'll come back and talk about this in a second. Angular lines we'll come back to because that one's a very specific one. Zigzag lines are like Harry Potter's lightning scar or chevron. Bent lines make me think of fingerprints. Do not color in with a marker on your finger and then press it on the paper because that's called cheating and it's not allowed. Okay, so those are bent lines. So let's talk for just a second about angular lines. I want you to close your eyes with me and I want you to imagine the rowdiest 2-year-old that you have ever met in your life. This 2-year-old is now at the end of a freshly painted white hallway. On either side of this kid are 2 buckets of purple paint. Now, what's left on the hallway after the 2-year-old has had his way with it or her way with it is a catastrophe. It's scribbles. There's no rhyme or reason to it. There is no method. That's what scribbling is, okay? Angular lines are a controlled scribble. So we're not going to be the 2-year-old running all the way down the hallway with purple paint, but we're going to overlap some lines and kind of scribble. I want to make an area more concentrated. I add more lines to it. I overlap more lines to make an area appear darker. You can do this to shade in spaces and give them maybe a little more dimension, maybe make them look a little more 3-dimensional. So what you see there, I've got my sphere, and that is a controlled scribble, also known as an angular line. All right, again, still not your turn. So straight lines, a lot of you will say, Miss Gamble, I can't draw a straight line even with a ruler, which number 1 is not true, you're just being lazy, but number 2 doesn't matter for this. So for straight lines, you're going to alternate vertical and horizontal lines so that it looks kind of like a basket. Now some students struggle because they try to make them all the same, but it's easier to do one row at a time and go across. So those are straight lines. Interrupted lines are by far the most annoying lines on the planet. So if you are drawing a line, you know, you're drawing a line and I go, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? I'm interrupting you and the result is dots. Oh my gosh, I would not do this with a mechanical pencil. I mean, if that's all you have, then make it work, but it's going to take 1,000 years to do that. If I want an area to appear darker, I simply add more dots to that area so they overlap and it's more concentrated. Okay, so those are interrupted lines. There's an entire movement in art called pointillism that uses nothing but dots to make painting. Miss Gamble does not do that. All right, so thick lines are thick, obviously. They will vary in thickness. They can be any kind of lines. You know, they can be straight, curvy, wavy, whatever you want to call them. But they need to be really, really thick, some of them. And they need to be far apart, close together, so on and so forth. That kind of thing. Okay, thin lines are thin. Again, you can vary how thin they are, how close together, how far apart. Do different colors in there, that'll make them more interesting. So now, let's talk parallel lines for just a second. Your parallel lines you know from math class. So tell me what you know about parallel lines from math class. We're going to do a little Dora the Explorer here and you yell at the TV even though I can't really hear you. I'm going to pretend like I can. What do we know about parallel lines from math class? Yes, they go on and on forever. It's at least 2 lines, right? That go on and on and on forever, and they never touch. Okay, well, I have a question for you. What if they really like each other and they go to the movies and they want to hold hands? No, they can't, because they're parallel lines and they don't even have hands. What a ridiculous question for you to ask. So that's what parallel lines are in math class. So you would want a ruler and you want to make sure that you have them parallel and they're not going to mess up anything. But we're in art class, so we're going to do sets of parallel lines. And because we're in art class and sometimes we bend the rules, we're even going to bend, oh what, shut up, we're going to bend our parallel lines a little bit and say that that's going to work like that. So now crosshatch lines are overlapping lines. kind of like a giant tic-tac-toe board. They are great for defining planes, not airplanes, because nobody can fly right now because of the corona. But they're great for defining flat surface area planes. So if I want to make an area appear darker, again, I add more shadow of light and dark to it. So you can see there I've made a cube. You guys don't know the game Cubert probably unless you're a gaming aficionado. That was an old game from when Miss Gamble was much younger that people like to play. So cross-hatching is good for defining planes. And then we have, last but not least, we have spirals. And you can make all sorts of spirals. So now, again, if you only have a pencil to work with, that's fine. But it's going to be a lot more interesting if we have different colors, different textures, and we're going to make this as interesting and colorful as we can. This is a 2-day assignment. Take your time, do a good job, but don't stress about it. This should be fun. And again, the big deal about lines is that everything that you see when we're making drawings is made up of lines. So have fun with line practice.